the Core Cast.
Welcome to Shoot the Corecast, the official companion podcast to the RF Generation Shmup Club. This is a family-friendly shmup-themed podcast that demands justice for Dave, or possibly Jeff. I'm Addicted, also known as Addicted to Shmups, and with me as always is...
MetalFRO, also known as Game Boy Guru. And if you would like to connect to the podcast, you can do so in a number of ways. Follow us over on X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Shoot Corecast. You can follow me directly at Game Boy Guru. You can also find us on Blue Sky. Look up Shoot the Corecast there. Find the link to our socials and all the feeds via our Linktree page. That is linktr.ee/shootthecorecast. You'll also find there a link to our Discord server that you will definitely want to join so that you can join us for a monthly playthrough, talk shmups and gaming in general. We have a lively and fun community, and so please come and check that out. Also, follow me on Twitch so you can get notifications of new streams, because I do play the Shmup Club game of the month multiple times each month, and that is twitch.tv/GuruGameBoy.
Alright, well, let's move on to the focus shot, which escaped my focus because I've been playing Blue Revolver. That got its hooks into me pretty well. It's a pretty fun game, so...
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to play Rolling Gunner. How about you?
I actually sat down with it today, and I put a little bit of time into Overpower. So I get to talk about Overpower for a little bit. I sat down, and as expected, I cleared Overpower Novice on my first try. Actually got a no miss, and sadly I didn't no miss on the casual mode in Overpower. I had an unfortunate death during the stage 6 boss, and then another unfortunate death during the TLB, but I kind of have an idea of what I need to do to mitigate those. And to be fair, I was attempting to play at least somewhat aggressively, but Overpower mode is fun. Not everybody will jive with the twin stick thing, but that mode really exemplifies the power fantasy kind of scenario that you have with a game like this, where you just feel like you are ripping through everything. And I really appreciate the fact that there are multiple ways to cancel bullets in that mode. There are basically 3 ways. One way is shared with the main mode of the game, or the original mode, in that when you activate your hyper, then all bullets on screen get canceled and converted into metals. But with the Overpower mode, your rolling gun cancels bullets when they come into contact with it. And so, similar to something like your Force Pod in R-Type, it will stop bullets from reaching you. And then also, you shoot, I can't remember what the name of it is, but the rolling gun also shoots out a large like fireball thing every so often, and that cancels bullets in its path. And so you have the ability to play much more aggressively, and you can really just go ham on it. And I know that one of the strats in the game is to kind of let the screen fill up with bullets and then activate hyper so that you can you can maximize that. And honestly, that's probably where the real skill ceiling is with the overpower mode, is learning how to score it effectively. Some key differences are there are no bombs in overpower. In the original game, you have bombs, and if you take a hit, you will auto bomb, and that'll deduct more bombs from your total. I think either you lose all your bombs or it uses twice as many. I can't remember off the top of my head. In overpower, you have a shield system. Now you still have lives, but instead of losing bomb, you just lose a shield hit, and then you can sort of upgrade your shield hit as you go along, or your shield capacity, I should say. And so the carrier enemies that you'll sometimes see that in the original mode will drop a bomb, they'll drop a new icon that has an S on it, and that will either refill your shield if you've taken a hit, or will upgrade your shield if you haven't taken a hit. You also can refill shield energy over time by playing, and some of it's just by playing, and some of it is by scoring and canceling bullets and stuff. So it's an interesting system, and it's very approachable. But I would say it's still challenging. I mean, I have the advantage of having put a not insignificant amount of time into Rolling Gunner already this year, and so I already know the levels relatively well and kind of how to route through them. And so even though it's been a while since I played, there are some key moments where, okay, I know what this enemy is going to do, or this large kind of mid-boss and its pattern and stuff. So I sort of know where to position myself or where to sit. And overpower mode kind of rewards you from a safety or survival standpoint by being somewhat aggressive, and also by getting up close and personal with enemies. Because number one, you're blocking a lot of shots that they're firing right at you before they even have a chance to come your direction. And then two, that close proximity with the enemies as you're shooting them is what's going to generate more medals for you, so that you can then hyper much more often. And so anyway, it's a cool system. And another thing that I found was curious, obviously because you're using an analog stick on both your movement and your rolling gun, I thought that maybe this mode would be set up for true analog control, but it's not. So instead, there's a designated button that you press to change between your regular movement and your focus shot slow movement, which is an interesting approach. But basically, when you're holding down your right stick to aim your gun, you're firing. But if there are times when you don't want to fire because you don't want to do damage or what have you, you can still aim the gun in the traditional manner, but then use a different button to fire just that large fireball to clear out bullets. And so you can allow yourself an opportunity to kind of stay somewhat safe while clearing enough bullets to keep you from getting taken out. And so that's a strat I think people can use to clear a path, so to speak, but then allow most of the bullets on screen to still accumulate, so that you can then activate a hyper to get a huge cancel. So anyway, it's a pretty cool mode, and I'm gonna have to put a little bit more time into it, see if I can get that no miss on the casual clear, and then move on to the normal or arcade, so that I can see how much crazier it is. One other thing that's cool is when you go into hyper, enemies do fire more bullets. And when you go into double hyper, it gets pretty bananas. Even little popcorn enemies will shoot a ton of bullets at you. But of course, you've got ways to cancel them. And one of the cool things I found is that when things get really hairy during a boss fight, you can sort of feather the right stick back and forth a little bit to sweep the rolling gun back and forth a little bit. And that will help to keep the area around you a little bit more clear of bullets. And of course, you can 360 it to help clear out more. But yeah, some interesting ideas there. And I was using that on the Stage 5 boss on I think its final pattern. You can kind of sit down in the bottom corner and then feather the rolling gun back and forth a little bit to keep the dense amount of bullets and stuff at bay. So anyway, I had fun with that earlier, and so I'm definitely going to have to explore that a little bit more.
Very nice. All right, let's move on to the shmup news, and this time we promise it is not longer than a Lord of the Rings trilogy watch. So, Cave is in the process of opening a new shop that will cater to the STG fan base, with merchandise centered around the genre. At present, it seems like it'll be only a physical store, but it'll be called Danmaku, and the company is recruiting staff to run it. They already have a Twitter account at Cave Direct Shop. Very nice. I'm certain that we will see Mark MSX there, and others as well. I can just imagine that someone goes in there and buys a ton of merchandise and just starts hawking it online.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that develops. But the timing's a little weird for this. But, I mean, good luck to Cave for, what they're doing.
I'm surprised they didn't call it The Cave, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Or Cave.
Strictly Limited Games has announced that the collector's editions of Air Twister for Switch, PS4, and PS5 are in production. And actually, we mentioned it last time, and I said I would believe it when I had it in my hands, but there was footage that they showed off of that Mecha-Ritz and Desitopia collector pack. And so I saw someone handling the box and like opening it up and, showing the contents inside. So it does actually seem like this stuff is real. So again, I'm still waiting for mine to arrive, but hopefully it does actually get here.
That's not what I'm wondering here. It seems like some of these YouTube channels are just there to, yes, it's real, and we gave it to this one channel so that way they could talk about it and hype up the product so that way you won't get mad at us.
Well, I think if I remember right, this was footage either on their website or on their X account. And so it was someone who works for Strictly Limited, showing it off.
Oh, it wasn't one of those ones like the National Lampoons where they had the gun to the dog's head and says, buy this issue or the dog gets it. Buy our next game where we destroy this. All right. MAME contributor Ramacat has recently implemented improvements to the Zavai X hardware emulation. So Zavai X platform games like the shoot 'em up Geki Go Shooting have proper audio support now.
Yeah, I saw some footage of the game and it looks pretty jank, but interesting.
That's exactly how I would describe this podcast.
Fair. Physical Nintendo Switch editions of the forthcoming pixel shooter Bounty Sisters are now available for pre-order from Japanese outlets. There's a standard edition as well as a limited edition with art book, acrylic stand-up, and mini soundtrack album.
Very nice. Pumpkin's Wild Night is a new name-your-own-price caravan shooter on itch.io from developer Wrath of Wood. It's a single-level 5-minute game with a Halloween theme that was created for the October Horrors 2025 Game Jam. This would be something fun to do maybe next year. Just something simple because I mean, not saying that Hazelnut Hex wasn't on the simpler side of things, right? But something a little less stressful, because it seems as soon as August is over, things just get extremely busy.
Yeah, right. J.N. Martin is nearing completion on a Dreamcast port of Star Fox 64, with estimates that the port is around 95% complete at this time. And it looks like it runs as it should and is smooth and sounds good.
All right, now we just need some good VMU support.
Yeah.
Through Blood and Dragons, Dragon Warriors is a new third-person shooter in the vein of Panzer Dragoon that released on Steam October 28th from the developer Dream Foundry Games and publisher SkySea and Sword Publishing. It appears to expand upon the ideas of Panzer Dragoon, and it has you controlling both the dragon itself as well as the rider atop the dragon's back. And hopefully it was better received than Panzer Dragoon 2 remake.
Yeah. Arondite from developer Copacal has been released on Steam as of October 28th. It is a 16:9 vertical shooter that takes heavy inspiration from Zanuck and other compile shooters.
Every time I see the word Zanuck, I just keep thinking of a sleep aid. Take 2 Zanuck. Zanuck may be habit forming. Please consult your doctor.
Yes.
Cubus has preserved 2 more Kiete mobile cave shooters, Dodonpachi Zero and the trial version of Dodonpachi. These appear to be heavily based upon the original Dodonpachi in terms of the look and feel. Of note, Dodonpachi Zero's music was composed by Manabu Namiki.
Yeah. Now, quick note here. It actually is Dodonpachi Zero and Dodonpachi.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I went to the Mark MSX School of Language here, so
right.
Cut me a little slack.
And that's an honest mistake, but all the posts that I saw made sure to highlight that no, this is actually the correct spelling for these games. But either way, it's cool that more of these are being preserved.
Wait, wasn't that the that Simpsons character that failed on Itchy and Scratchy, Dodonpachi?
Oh my goodness. Sure, why not?
I must go. My people need me. No wonder why they had problem finding it.
Yeah. 3 more Toaplan titles have been confirmed in development for the Atari 7800 through Atari and Playon's licensing agreement. Slap Fight, Flying Shark, and Twin Cobra are all in the works. The developer did encourage folks to purchase the existing Tiger Heliport, as game sales will need to be there in order to continue to fund these projects.
Sounds good. Shoot the Baguette 7, hosted by French STG player Juju Kenobi, well, let's hope he has a high ground, will be taking place on December 6th and will feature 15-plus games from a number of runners, spanning classics like 1943 Kai or Operation Ragnarok, up to newer games like Blue Revolver, DDP, DFK, and Star of Providence. Blue Revolver, I'll have to tune in for that.
Yeah. Vertical arcade shooter Scion from Seibu Denshi, later known as Seibu Kaihatsu, released via Arcade Archives on October 30th. It was the company's second shooter after their 1983 game Stinger, and it released in 1984. This one looks kind of interesting. It's got a little bit of a twist on the Xevious formula.
Nice. Moss has announced that Raiden Fighter's Remix Collection will launch February 26, 2026 in Japan. Nintendo Switch, PS5, and even PS4 physical versions will be available. And pre-orders for Japan are open now. No word on Western partner yet, but you can pretty much bet it's going to be limited on games in some capacity. The other thing I have to say about this, if they don't launch with a collector's edition with either a coffee cup or some coffee, I'm going to be disappointed.
The only The only thing that would make me believe it won't be limited run is because Moss did the Raiden 4 Mikado and Raiden 3 Mikado collections through
PlayAsia?
No, it was through oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the company.
The same one who does NIS America, the same people who did
Yes, NIS America. Right. And so I'm guessing that will end up being their partner for a Western release. There's a lot of speculation in the community right now as to how they're going to handle the 54 FPS mode. Because generally speaking, while the 360 Raiden Fighters collection is held up as a very good release, most players opt to play the game in 60 FPS mode because it runs smooth, whereas if you run it in the native 54 FPS, there's a lot of jitter in the scrolling and the movement. And so with TVs now having variable refresh rate and things like that, you wonder if they'll implement some kind of version of that to allow for proper 54 FPS gameplay, so that the games can be played at the right speed.
For a second there, I thought you said prefer to play it on PC, and I was about ready to call the podcast right here. That's a notice for everyone. Do not buy the PC version.
Oh, yeah. Do not buy Raiden Legacy. But I suspect that once this comes out, it will be the definitive version, if they can get that right.
Limited Run Games held their LRG3 event and announced 25 new physical releases, including a Switch release of the Choaniki Collection, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One releases Capcom Arcade Stadium, as well as a PS5 and Switch release of Sigma Starred Saga DX. I can tell you what, I sound like Hank Kilder. Boy, let me tell you what. What? You can do it better than I can, but that's all right. The Choaniki collection, if it has a collector's edition, I don't want whatever's in it.
Yes. Well, and what I'm not sure about with the Capcom Arcade Stadium is, because the announcement didn't really make it clear, is this just going to be Capcom Arcade Stadium Volume 1, or is it going to include both volumes? My guess is it'll just be Volume 1, and then we'll have to have a Volume 2. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that works. I'll tell you what.
Yes. I gotta say that I think you're right. It's sort of like, how do we maximize our money? Well, let's just split into two. Look at Blaster Master, right?
Yes.
Blaster Master Zero, the exact same thing.
Yes.
Granted, I realize at that point some of the games weren't developed, but it's just, no, they'll do Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Yeah, most likely. Pudding Liar Knight is a new Toho-inspired Danmaku shooter from developer Katetama, who previously released Irisu Syndrome and Murasaki. An English release of the game is slated for a November 2025 release on Steam.
All I can say is I hope it's incessant.
Yes.
Platypus Reclaimed received some free DLC for the Steam version of the game called Spooky Platypus, themed around Halloween. It's not clear if the DLC will remain free or available much past the holiday.
1cc Games released their shmup-adjacent gallery shooter Silver Bullet on Steam as of October 30th.
You know what? I just thought that... I hate we're skipping back for a second, but Platypus Reclaimed, the next DLC will be Mr. Bill.
Oh
no! Cleared Hot is a new shooter inspired by the Desert Strike series of games It's coming to Steam and early access in November thanks to MicroProse and developer Not Knowing Corporation. It's apparently been in development for several years and the same isometric perspective and mission-based structure. Wow, there's a lot of Desert Strike and Strike-like games coming out of the woodwork lately.
Yeah, this has kind of been the minor hotness here in the last year. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Shieldmade MX now officially launches on Switch, PS4 and 5, and Xbox Series on November 26th in partnership between HitP Studio and East Asia Soft.
Nice. We're going to have to cover this sooner than later, maybe next year.
Yeah, I mean, I already did my... I think I did my pre-order for the Switch physical version the day that the pre-order went live, because I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to have this, and I definitely want to cover it.
Just to put out here for full disclosure, we were both beta testers for the game, along with Ed of Studio Mud Prince. E-Trem88, I don't know. He's changed his name almost as much as Prince. I think he's got one more to go. Arcade cabinet maker Unico is producing the Raiden-themed Nova Blast cabinet, the Saibo Kaihatsu Raiden Arcade Collection. That is a mouthful. That is set to launch with 6 built-in Raiden games, Raiden, Raiden 2, Raiden DX, and all 3 Raiden Fighters titles. It's supposed to be a mystery 7th game that's not yet confirmed. This cabinet is confirmed to have a 26-inch 4x3 monitor and Tate mode orientation. I would be, if the mystery game turned out to be Raiden Nova, I would just see the look of disappointment on people's faces there.
Right. I don't think it will because that wouldn't make a lot of sense being a newer game. The video that I saw that had some detail on the cabinet and talked about what was going on with it, said he hoped that it would be Viper Phase 1, and that would be my hope as well.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. I mean, realistically, I don't think they got the hardware to do Raiden 5 and even Raiden 4, because most people have played Raiden 4 due to the 17 re-releases of Raiden Mikado.
Right.
So, right, then that just leaves Raiden 6, which is rumored to be in development, so...
Right, yeah. So we'll see. The developer behind the currently in development shooter Endrant Star announced on social media that the game is near completion and work has commenced on the game's final level. There's still no release date, but hopefully this means that we'll see the game at some point in the coming weeks or months. And this is one that I am highly anticipating. I mentioned this, I think, the first time over a year ago, and that I was excited for it because it gave me major Sega CD and Turbo CD vibes. It reminds me of the same kind of feeling I got from when I first bought my Sega CD, which of course was after its commercial life. But when I bought the Sega CD and I bought Android Assault and had the cool, colorful Genesis graphics, but then also that CD soundtrack. And this really gives me a similar vibe. So I'm looking forward to it.
And that reminds me, that is such a weird title. Who is Baryarm, and why does he need revenge?
Yeah, that's a good question, but that's a game we need to cover at some point too.
Did they take his arm? I don't know. Necronancy is a horror-themed homebrew shooting game for the NES, in a sort of Space Invaders meets Donkey Kong 3 style. You control Nancy and move back and forth from the bottom of the screen, shooting ghosts and other foes as they descend down on the screen. There's currently a Kickstarter campaign to get support for the game, which has already exceeded its funding goal. There's still over a month to pledge. Amazing to see that we're still in the thing. of if it's an NES game, it almost instantly gets funded.
Yeah.
I mean, even after we're celebrating, what, 40 years now?
Yeah, 40 years.
And someone out there was just quoting that meme of the Titanic. It's been 83 years. But yeah, it just has that hold within the public consciousness that we're like, oh, sweet, new game for the NES. Well, let me buy it.
Right. Madlum is a forthcoming shooter from developer Blind Void. The Steam page is up to wishlist, though it's only listed as to be announced in terms of a release date. The game is a bullet hell style shooter with an interesting high contrast color scheme and art style. It almost looks like, if you think about the dark aesthetic of Never Awake combined with the weird designs of something like Angel at Dusk. You'll have some vague idea as to what you're in for.
Something that will burn my eyes when we describe it. Though that's really something interesting there. Yeah. Got your ass for sure.
Yeah.
The Choaniki collection from Idea is releasing on Steam in the near future, through an official release date has not been set. Yeah, I'll probably be buying this, but at least on Steam. So I'm not so sure I want a physical version of this yet. That goes in the adults only pile.
And, the thing that's frustrating about this collection is that it's only the 2 PC Engine games. It really would have been nice if they had included at least the PlayStation game, but I guess not.
That will be sold separately on the Choaniki Collection 2, followed by the Choaniki Collection 3, 4, and 5. Collect them all.
I don't know that there are that many games.
Oh, they'll come up with a new one. Here's a Choaniki phone port.
Oh, jeez. Here's
a Ponchi Slow. A Java version.
Java. Saivari R3 will be receiving a Western release through Red Art Games and is set to launch March 19th, 2026. It will be available on PS5, Xbox Series, Switch and Switch 2, as well as PC, and it will be a worldwide launch. However, at this time, it appears only the PS5 version will be receiving a physical print. And I did see confirmation that while Success announced this at Tokyo Game Show, they've actually contracted with Banana Bytes to do the design. And of course, Banana Bytes is the developer who did Softstar. So I guess we'll see how this turns out.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'm a little curious on. I wonder if it's just because the games are to get the actual cartridges for the Switch is expensive. In Switch 2, we know what the situation is there because of the way that it's too slow to read from the cartridge. So that's why a lot of games are key cards. But I don't know.
Well, from what I understand, Nintendo only offered one size of game card initially. I think it was 64 gigs. And so a lot of companies didn't want to pay for that large cartridge size, which would cut into their profit, which is why they did game key cards. But from what I've heard, Nintendo is beginning to offer other Switch 2 game card sizes, and so there will be cheaper options for smaller games in the future. But yeah, that's what I've heard as to one of the reasons why the game key cards are so prevalent early on.
Yeah, the Costco model. We got one size. Whatever you want, you have to buy a pallet full. Compile Heart and M2 have announced that their forthcoming shooter Celeste has been delayed until 2026 in Japan. It's still slated for release on the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and PS5. I wonder when we'll see what the actual last PS4 game is. I mean, say nothing of this next generation. We're just going to have a huge amount of cross-gen from PS5 to PS6, but still making physical PS4 games. I wonder how long that's going to... Because the PS3 lasted for quite a while, and it's usually Madden or FIFA that's the last game, but I wonder if like 2030 we'll still get any PS4 games.
I'd be for it. Cat Hui Trading's Famicom and NES shooter Changeable Guardian Estique is getting a modern platform release thanks to publisher Amata Games. The Steam page is already up for the game, though the release only shows as 2026. It will also be available on the Microsoft Store, as well as the Xbox Series, PS5, and Switch.
Oh, speaking of something, this is totally unrelated, but just because I had the word 2026 in there, isn't the Bog Hogs new game supposed to come out next year too?
Possibly. I'm not 100% sure, but I can't imagine, as long as it's been in development, that he'll delay it too much longer.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. The Steam page is now up for the previously mentioned Emerald Blue, though the demo builds available on Extra Soft Development Team's itch.io page aren't linked. There's still no release date listed.
Yeah. I thought this was pretty cool news that caught me by surprise. East Asia Soft is launching their own online store alongside their American subsidiary, East Asia Soft of America. The 3 initial titles that they're producing will include the forthcoming shooter Birdcage, as well as the Cute-em-up collection that has both Takotan and Exocalibre. Physicals are only PS5 at this time, but they are very reasonably priced, and they include both a standard and a deluxe edition. Video Games Plus is also handling pre-orders for the Canadian market. And when I say very reasonably priced, I mean the standard editions are going to be $20, and then the deluxe editions, which will have an extra outer box and a CD soundtrack, are $30. And so this I'm excited about, and seeing this and seeing that there are more and more of these releases that are going to be PS5 only or PS5 as a major platform, I think it might finally be time for me to bite the bullet and get a PS5 myself. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it because I don't really have much room in my setup right now, but boy, I just need to... I need that shmup action on PS5.
There you go. Yeah, don't stand it vertically, because then all the liquid metal just droops down to the bottom and causes it to die. I've seen people say it stand it horizontally, but I have heard that if you do stand it vertically, at least for a while, you do increase the roaming in your area.
Maybe I can get myself some more 5G.
There you go, all the G's. There was a shmup on the Japanese PC 8001 or 8001 titled Gyrus, released in 1984. It's not related to the Konami Arcade or Famicom release of the same name, but is a simple side-scrolling shooter. Developer Hikjik 0909, and no, I did not have a stroke, that is how it's pronounced, is working on a remake sequel titled Gyrus 2. Test builds are available to play for free in the browser on the developer's GitHub page.
Yeah, there was some footage of the original that actually looked fairly impressive. I mean, there's no music, but for the time and for the limited hardware that the PC 8001 has, it looked kind of cool. And the sequel looks like it takes the ideas from the original and greatly expands upon them. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Excellent. Well, now that we've gotten through the news, let's move on to the participants for the month of September. They were Eat Electric Death, Goji Guy, Corkman77, Skolch, Man of Yagogwa. I think people are just throwing in weird names now just to see me pronounce them horribly, so I apologize. Delta Mudkip, Pony Trigon, DL Wraith, the name Boss, the ever-present International House of Zebras, otherwise known as IHOS, Decimus, and Orc Commander. So the game that we played during the month of September was a Biohazard Battle, or a really weirdly named Japanese title was Crying, which I think they just put in there because they liked the way the font looked. So, Crying, Asemi Senso, which translates to Crying Sublife War, was released in Japan on October 30th, 1992 for the Mega Drive. The game was rebranded as Biohazard Battle for Western releases, which were released in December 1992 for the North American market in January 1993 in Europe. The game was created internally at Sega of Japan, but very little was known about the game's development until recently. Fun fact about this, it is Sega's only other horizontally scrolling shooter besides Fantasy Zone. Since the initial release on Sega's 16-bit hardware, the game has only seen a couple additional releases, unlike most of Sega's first-party Genesis and Mega Drive games. There was a Wii Virtual Console release in February 2007 and a Steam release of the game in October 2010. The Steam version has since been delisted. It was included as part of the Sega Genesis Classics compilation that was released on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PS4 in 2018. A Sharp X68000 version of the game was in development but never released. The rights to this version are currently held by M2 CEO Naoki Hori. In 2023, Japanese developer Sci-Fi TZK created a blog entry dealing some more development about Crying BHB that gave more insight into the game was available for a long time. Based on the blog post, it was originally conceived as a title to help sell the Sega Mega Modem peripheral. It would be a two-player shooter that could be played online together. But since the Mega Modem peripheral only had half duplex connection, it was technical limitation that would make this kind of fast action shooter impossible. Instead, the game was shifted over to be a standard two-player shooter. Yeah, I wonder what else. Someone's out there just has the idea, says, alright, we've got this shmup game, or this shooting game, and we're going to use the karaoke add-on. You have to sing to get your... sing... If you hit the notes correctly, then you get your power up. Development occurred at the Sega CS1 lab, located in what is now defunct PK building in Higashi Kojira, which is just minutes away from the now defunct Sega offices at Otori, sorry. My mark MSX is shown. According to TZK, who joined the team in April of 1992, 4 stages in the game were either in development or already complete, and Stage 1 was added later as an introductory level. Shout out to Stage 1. Now I can finally say, Squids in Space! Sega of America apparently requested more levels, which was part of what prompted the version of Stage 1 that ended up in the final game. By July 1992, the game was nearly complete. TZK reported that both Koji Tsukida and Hiroki Goto, known for Star Wars on the X68000 and Stellar Assault on the Mega CD and Saturn, were involved in prototyping of Crying, but principal programming duties were that of Shigeru Isuda. Shigeru had previously worked on ports of Fantasy Zone and Ease for the 68000, and later became an integral part of Sega's Wave Master sound team. His brother, Kenshiro, apparently also contributed sound and music compositions and was credited in game as K&U Shigeharu, and apparently an independent contractor with Sega at the time rather than a full-fledged employee. According to TZK, the graphics were developed on a Macintosh using Sega's in-house graphical tool, the Digitizer 3. That, back when we knew how to name stuff. We don't want to call it Photoshop. We call it the Digitizer 3. That also sounds like the name of a weapon in Ratchet and Clank. TZK also mentioned another graphic designer named Matsura, who used the SGI platform to create some of the underwater enemies. Also, Shigeharu Isuda was credited as Kazumi Nasu as the game's director in the credits. Other staff who worked on the game include Nagawa Toro, responsible for design, programming, sound drivers, and development tools, and around a third of the game's stages, credited as Tombi. Seno Shinichi, who created objects for the game originally as meatballs, which TZK mentioned in an early blog post, since this was an early conceptual idea, credited by Sunoko. Kenichiro Isoda, credited as Mikitabara, was headed sound effects and sound design, in addition to music composition, as well as handling around one-third of the game's stage design. TZK himself was responsible for ROM burning, writing and rewriting the ROMs to EEPROM chips. Well, it's hopefully when they were taking pictures that they had those glass screens covered, as well as playtesting and reporting bugs. He also made suggestions to the dev team regarding the game's difficulty, including the suggestion that they add the practice difficulty. He was credited in the game as Sci-Fi TZK, and also thanks to a section during the credit sequence, and states that this was his first game credit. 1cc. TZK also mentioned the game didn't sell very well in Japan. New copies can be found as low as 1,000 yen not long after release. While in development, the working title of the game was actually Hazard, though the earlier prototype was apparently GA, which stood for General Algorithm. The name Crying was taken from the novel of the same name by Kenichiro Isoda, but published under a different pseudonym by Kibunsha due to trademark issue. According to Sci-Fi TZK, the design of the game was heavily influenced by R-Type as well as Last Resort for the Neo Geo, which was fairly contemporary at the time. TZK also mentioned the slower enemy bullet speed in the game was a deliberate decision, and using the option to block or clear away bullets was the key mechanic. And what a good idea that was. Based on the information in the manual, the game takes place in August of 2116. Alright, everybody, get ready for your favorite part of a shmup, the story. During G-Biowar, the first global Biowar, a powerful new form of retrovirus was released as a reprisal from the enemy. The viruses unleashed biological forces which couldn't be stopped, leaving the planet filled with new and deadly forms of life. Only a few survivors remain suspended on animation in the Odysseus, an orbiting platform circling Averon. The spaceship's purpose is to keep the surviving humans alive until Averon is habitable again. The crew of the Odysseus have been frozen in cryogenic tanks for hundreds of years, and now the onboard computer has awakened them. Computer probes show that conditions at Averon are hostile but livable. The question is, can the crew of the Odysseus set up a colony? This is a question you have been assigned to answer. You must pilot a bioship to Averon, fly over the areas which the probes have been labeled least hostile, and check out the conditions there. Find a new home for the last survivors of G-Biowar 1. Now, I don't know about you, but after reading the story and thinking about the whole context of this, it really felt like a early 80s or early 80s or early 90s Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, my question is, hostile but livable? In whose estimation? I mean, the game's pretty hostile, so I can't imagine that you would want to live on the surface of the planet or anything like that, given just how many threats there are. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I was about to say it was spoiler alert, but the end boss on there, I don't know. At first, I thought it was the interrogation droid from Star Wars when it popped out, but then I realized it's probably just a rice cooker again, just like in Rolling Gunner. and I think that if you left the top off of a rice cooker and it just started shaking for 1,000 years, you probably spell some Biohazard too. And I mean, at that point, the worms coming out of it start to make sense. It's probably just some rice cooker that someone left on for too long.
Oh, well. On that note, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, Biohazard Battle is, or I should say, Crying is a one-button game in the Japanese version, where all three buttons on the Mega Drive controller will fire your weapon when tapped, and then charge up the Plasma Wall special shot when held down. But for the North American version, Sega set the A button as an auto-fire, and so then buttons B and C can be used to charge the Plasma Wall by pressing and holding. As mentioned before, this is a one or two player game and is co-op in two-player mode. In the options menu, you'll find 5 difficulty settings: practice, easy, normal, which is the default, hard, and hardest. Practice mode only goes to stage 5, whereas the game has 8 total stages. You can also set the game to 3, 4, or 5 starting lives, and the default is 3. Now, as mentioned, one of the game's central mechanics is the use of the option. Similar to the Force Pod in the R-Type games, this option can deflect or absorb some enemy bullets, and then also serves as the main outlet for your bioship's weapons. As you move your bioship around, the option will spin around the ship and orient the direction it will face, which will affect either the direction that you're firing or where your ship's main fire will come from. There are 4 different power-up items that you can get throughout the game, all labeled in the manual as energy seeds. And each one will provide a different weapon type depending on the bioship you choose. The yellow energy seed will give you these 2 weapon choices. One of those is the spin laser, which shoots a forward-firing, powerful laser. And then the other is the fire pedal, which shoots a stream of powerful fireballs that can be directed with your option. The orange seed provides either the plasma ring, which is a spinning ring of energy that bounces off inert matter and detonates on contact with living matter, or the seeker laser, which homes in on potential hazards to destroy them. The blue seed yields either the bond weapon, which shoots these blue globules of plasma, which will attach to a creature and explode. The bond weapon also has a partial homing capability. And then the Nova is an 8-way burst of energy or lasers, essentially, and that's the other blue seed option. And then finally, the green seed only provides what's known as the implosion pods, which serves as your default weapon for all bioships. These will create a vacuum effect on contact and cause damage to living matter. And note that when you start each stage, there's a batch of 4 energy seeds that will spawn pretty much right away, one of each color. But because some of the stages start at high speed, you got to be careful to make sure that you don't run into the wrong one and collect an energy seed that you don't want and change to a weapon that you don't want. And so that's something to be aware of immediately. When you start from the game, you can choose from 4 different ships. And when you look at the ship selection screen in the game, the top left ship is known as Orestes, the top right is known as Electra, the bottom left is known as Hecuba, and then the bottom right is known as Polyxena. And just for quick reference here from the manual, the Orestes ship is fast and has the fire pedal, plasma ring, and Nova weapons, and of course the implosion pods. Electra is a slower ship and has the fire pedal, the seeker laser, and the bond weapon. Hecuba is a fast ship that has the spin laser, the plasma ring, and the bond weapon. And then Polyxena is a slower ship, but it has the spin laser, the seeker laser, and the Nova.
And this is a neat way of saying choose your difficulty.
Yeah, in some ways. There are definitely easier ships to clear than others. As we get into the discussion of the game later, you'll find that Polyxena was a popular choice, and that is not surprising given its weapon loadout. But I do think that each of the 4 ships is viable, and each has certain strengths. Now, each weapon can power up 3 times to reach max level. Collecting a different color energy seed than what you have equipped won't power up the new weapon. It will only switch your current weapon to the new one at the same power level that you have now. Biohazard Battle plays out across 8 stages. Stage 1, known as Re-Entry, sees your chosen bioship entering the upper atmosphere of Acheron, and you take on a number of enemies immediately as you descend toward the planet's surface. There's no boss encounter in this first level, interestingly enough. Stage 2, the city ruins, has you exploring a large city structure devastated from the biowar. This is a high-speed stage, with enemies coming in large waves, as well as those that will ride rails and will try to box you in. And at the end, you fight a tentacled monstrosity that has occupied a large, tall building and will throw chunks of concrete at you. Stage 3 finds you exploring the forest and jungle areas, which are overrun with giant flying centipedes and massive spores, along with other mutated insect and alien life. You'll face off at the end with a giant worm that has grown out of the base of a large tree.
Yeah, this boss said, "Hey, we've got R-Type at home," or this one reminded me of the first stage of R-Type.
Right, and it does sort of like a couple of other games on the Mega Drive and just 16-bit shooters in general. Yeah, this one definitely channels a little bit of that, shall we say, phallic energy. Stage 4 is the Bozite Mine. According to the manual, Comtech ultrasound scans detected a large number of life forms in the cavern beneath the surface. Thankfully, the caverns are spacious enough for you to maneuver through. Here, you'll encounter a large floating mass that calls in many minions to assault you as you try to take it down.
Was this the one that would try and, armor itself from stuff in the cave? Or was that a later boss?
Well, sort of. I mean, it's got this this sort of tentacle tail thing it can move up and prevent you from shooting at it from the front. So there's definitely a little bit of that going on.
One of the bosses I remember it was green. Kept calling it the booger boss because it would just put green stuff on. And you have to destroy that by shooting at it.
Oh yeah, that might be it.
It's this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the booger boss. Yeah. Okay.
Stage 5, Oceania, takes place in the oceans of Acheron. The space station was unable to get good scans of the areas deep in the ocean, so you go in to find out what's down there and to determine if a colony could be built under the ocean floor. Here, you'll face off against a large sea creature that will fire large spears at you and dart at your position. Now, Stage 6 is the classic battleship stage, which pits you against the Flying Destroyer. You receive info from the space station that a large automated warjet is still left over from the G-Biowar 1 and is near your position. You must disassemble the flying war machine by shooting down and destroying its different segments until it has been dismantled, making colonization safer. Stage 7 is the Biowar Lab grounds. You'll pilot your bioship through the Biowar Lab complex to gather data for the Odysseus scientists to determine the type of gene mutation experiments that were being done as the Biowar began, hopefully to prevent such a disaster in the future. And then deep in the lab, you'll find a large number of life forms to take out before you can progress.
I think this is where it really started to get on me with where it makes you go through these sort of walled off, and it would move the screen left and right. I know Stage 8 definitely has that stuff, but this is where it sort of puts you in narrow corridors, and this is where I started to get a little bit annoyed at the game. It does create a sense of dread and stuff like, hey, what's next? But it just felt so claustrophobic in comparison to all the other levels, like 7 and 8.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was by design. And 7 doesn't really have a boss fight in the traditional sense either. It's just that the screen is littered with all of these goofy looking enemies that you just need to shoot down to make sure that they don't run into you. And then it's either after a time limit or after you take out so many, then the stage ends. And then stage 8 is the BioWar Lab Core. And your goal is to reach the central core, find the BioWar materials, and hope that they can be used to stabilize the biosphere on Averon. At the end, you'll take on a large capsule that breaks open when damaged to reveal a mechanical pod that will fly around and attack you with bullets and spears.
You missed a really good segue to say you got to shoot the core.
This is true. One handy feature throughout the game, if all of that I just described sounds daunting, is that the bioships have no collision with terrain. So you would only take damage if you got caught behind the terrain when the screen scrolls and you get left behind. But otherwise, you can touch the ground and the ceiling and all of that fun stuff. So it definitely helps with the game's balance in that regard. Also very helpful is the fact that you earn an extra life for every 20,000 points that you earn. In addition to that, there are hidden 1-up icons that you can reveal by shooting at specific points within each of the game's stages, except for stage 1. And the game also offers a generous 9 continues. So if you lose all your lives and you want to keep playing, you can continue from the stage where you died. And so with 9 continues, I suspect that anyone with a reasonable skill in the genre should be able to use that to get through this game, pretty handily. The one other thing that I forgot to put in the notes, but I wanted to mention is that, we talked about the energy seeds with the different weapon types, but each of the bioships, regardless of what weapon you have equipped, will also shoot a sort of forward green laser shot of some kind at all times while you're firing your other weapons. And so that, in addition to whatever secondary weapon you've picked up, that's always available firing forward from the front of your bioship.
All right, let's move on to graphics. As with many shooters of the 16-bit era, Biohazard Battle is a colorful game that benefits from the darker Genesis palette due to the game's location, story, and biowarfare themes. While many areas and enemies can be bright and bold, the game has an overall darker look to it that works with the setting. Many larger enemies, such as flying centipedes or giant worms, have nice animations that are fluid and have several frames to make them stand out. Even small enemies can move in a way that is interesting and generally look good in motion. Because of the varied locations, the game's backgrounds are unique, even if some of the settings are similar to other games of the area. There's plenty of detail and terrain in the backgrounds, and there's some use of parallax scrolling here and there. The boss designs range from effective to gross and disturbing. The game doesn't reach H.R. Giger levels of biohorror, but can lean that direction at times. Enemy projectiles are easy enough to see, though if the screen gets busy, such as at the Stage 5 boss fight, the smaller bullets can get lost in the shuffle. The game does a pretty good job at making you feel in unknown territory and diverse, making it feel like this is an unknown planet. People once lived here, but it's there, and it really reminded me a lot of Thunder Force 3 with its very theme, and same with the graphic level as well. It did a really good job of keeping the themes of it reined in and well working, even if some of the stuff is a variation on the theme that we didn't see in other STGs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think graphically, the game is probably, I won't say that it's on par with Thunder Force 3, but if it's not, it's definitely leaning in that direction.
Yeah.
And I would say it's
Thunder Force 3 had that fire effect, right, that everyone loves. And so yeah, I would definitely agree with you there that it's pretty close. It's almost there.
Yeah, but I would say it's probably equally as good, if not better, than some of the other Genesis shmups from around that time. You know, stuff like Whip Rush or Arrow Flash, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely do a lot worse.
Right.
Okay, so sound. Composer Kenshiro Isoda did a commendable job on providing music that was sufficiently atmospheric in the biohorror theme of the game. The soundtrack means the effective use of repetition of the tracks that build upon a foundation and layer in new pieces along the way. Some tracks have a very ominous feel to them, such as the boss theme, or take on a much more epic feel, such as the Stage 2 or 8 music. One minor disappointment with the music is that the final boss doesn't get its own theme, and the boss music is shared throughout the game. Sound effects are solid and generally fit the game. The explosion sound that your bioship makes when you take a death in the game is fairly unique, and not quite as impactful as it could be, but it's at least memorable. I like the soundtrack in here, and I think it does a good job at making things seem unnerved. Right? You never feel comfortable in this game. You all wonder what's next, and it does a good job of showing that. But the problem that I had was after the stages are a little bit too long for the music, or the music's a little too short for the stages, in my opinion. And it started to irritate me when I kept saying the same music over and over again. And it made me want to just mute the music and then put on Metal Squad or something on. It's not. It's again. It's close. It's definitely in the ballpark, and it does a great job for Sarah. I especially like the title track, but at the same time, it just doesn't sync and fully up with the length of the levels, and so you get a lot of repetition. And that repetition is what just drives me to want to mute it after a while. The other thing that I had a problem with was it was neat to hear the boss music, but after a while it sounded like an alarm clock with a battery that was dying. It just became grating to my ears. So I don't know.
See, and this is this is a situation where I can provide a counterpoint because to me the music in this game works really well, and I feel like that repetition actually works with the game. If you think about it in the context of the game, the biowarfare theme, and the sort of alien planet or alien life forms on your planet, I think it helps to complement the atmosphere that the graphics and the other sound design have created. And so I think most of the themes are strong enough that even with the heavy repetition, it still works pretty well. And I definitely had the Stage 2 music stuck in my head the whole month.
As I said, this could just be a me problem. Maybe because it looked a little bit similar to Thunder Force, I was thinking, now let's get Metal Squad and go. But yeah, so we'll see. I don't think it's bad music. I think it fits, as you said. I think it fits very well with the theme. I just, again, minor nitpicks. I just think it goes on a little bit too long for its own good. But again, this is just my opinion.
Sure. Just touching on the scoring real quick. Honestly, scoring in this game is dead simple. Basically, just destroy as many enemies as you can. One thing I found curious is that the energy seeds give you no points. Even once you're at max level, you get no points. And also, Biohazard Battle is a very low-scoring game. Enemy point values are surprisingly small. Now, there are some enemies later in the game that give you more, or some larger enemies that'll give you more. But generally speaking, it's just very low scoring. I think the highest score that we had was something like 300,000 points for the whole game.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to thoughts from the RF Generation community. Let's start with Eat Electric Death. Did a few test runs. The version of the Mega Drive collection for PS4 plays fine. One of those games where avoiding power-ups is part of the game. Some of the weapons are just way better than others. The homing laser in particular. Yeah, I'm not sure if we mentioned that before too, where the part of the problem was also avoiding the power-ups that you didn't want. And they kept going up and down the screen, so avoiding them became sort of a hassle too.
Right.
But did we also mention that you can get up to 3 of the same weapon?
Yeah, you can power up 3 times to get to max level. Yep.
Yep. I'm not sure if I just missed that. Later on, he says the Western version in Biohazard Battle just has auto-fire and the A button by default. I'm not sure if there are any other meaningful differences between Crying and BHP. The PS4 collection only has the US BHP ROM. It's a weird collection that it regard because some games they have multiple versions, but for others it's just the US one. I'm still stuck on Stage 3. That speed kill section in Stage 2 and the black worm thingy in Stage 3 are the banes of my existence. Made it halfway through Stage 4 in the latest attempt. I'm starting to crack this egg. The key was being more tactical with my weapon changes and charge shot usage instead of just relying on homing for everything. That is something I also had to figure out. I was like, I'm just going to use homing because it just I'm like, oh wait, I actually need this green shot even though it feels useless sometimes. I think this game has a very interesting weapon system overall, and they're different yet pretty well balanced. Each has their own uses. Yeah, definitely key to the game there. Instead of wider homing shot being just the best option, as it often happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's definitely has more depth than it initially appears.
For sure.
Whether you pick out your ship and the types of weapons that you want and how they're used, it requires you to really learn the game and its mechanics in order to get through.
Yep. Goji Guy jumped in and said, "Oh, nice. I'm definitely joining this month. I've got the Genesis cart. This game starts out pretty easy and then cranks up the heat pretty fast. If I remember correctly, Electra, the top right chip, and Polyxena, the bottom right chip, have the homing attack on the orange power-up, making them my usual choices. Later on, I haven't had much time to play yet. Got to stage 4 on normal difficulty. It seems pretty forgiving, but all my deaths were pretty memo. Something bursts out of a background object, something flies in from behind, etc. Game is gorgeous. Music is great. Surprised this isn't discussed more when people talk about Genesis shmups or Genesis games in general. Great atmosphere and story too. Glad to bust up my old copy." And then toward the end of the month, I got super distracted, unfortunately. I ended up purchasing an Astro City this month and a few PCBs. But I will say, I do quite enjoy Biohazard Battle. I think it's underrated, and the presentation is fantastic. The only downside for me is that it has a few too many memo jump scares that make it difficult to blind clear. I guess that's par for the course when it comes to old console shmups, though.
Corkman77 says, the blue power-up with the 8-way shot and the red homing laser are definitely seen to be the most useful in the game. The bottom right ship has both as an option. Looks like that'll be my ship. Yeah, that was one of the biggest ships of choice. I love the creepy bio vibe of this game. The music adds to it as well. We could use a few more shmups with this type of setting. Played this on a plane ride with air turbines. Not recommended unless you want a real challenge. I'll bet. Made some progress this morning. Got to stage 7 on one continue on easy with 5 lives. It's strange. I feel like stage 2 has been the hardest so far. I really have to be mindful or in position at stage to not get tagged. Other levels don't seem to require that type of memorization. Maybe stage 3 to a degree. And stage 8 is brutal. I switched to blue spread from the red laser to deal with all the chaos. I think I have a strat now after using several credits to figure out how level 8 works and finish the game. Started playing on normal difficulty and found the enemies take about the same number of hits, but they shoot bullets more often and I think the bullets are a bit faster. At any rate, I got to stage 7, almost to the boss on 1 credit. Got some level 4 and level 5 things to smooth over, but I should be able to do this. I think the bottom left yellow bug is my bug to use. Is it a bug? Are we playing as Mimo? Oh, they are cryogenically unfrozen bio warriors. See right there, that screams Saturday morning cartoon to me.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Alright, I got the 1cc on normal with default settings and Polyzena. Oh, good GG. I might try the ship with no homing laser and 8-way shot to see if there's a difference in difficulty. I'll save comments for the end of the month, but this is one of those I know now I'll pop in for a quick playthrough for the future from time to time. I tried using Hikuba last night, one with either the homing laser or the 8-way weapon shot. Definitely made the game harder. I had to think a lot more about swinging the option and pointing the direction to hit enemies. Even with knowing generally where they're coming from, the time I put in this game, it was still a challenge. I will say the red weapon and bouncing it off the ground or ceiling is a decent strat for keeping the swarms of enemies at bay. Also, the blue bubbles have a slight homing effect as they will bend slightly towards enemies and bullets. The bubbles can also cancel bullets. Final thoughts here. I've had this game for many years now and played it several times casually and always meant to really spend some time with it. So I was happy to really dive into it this month. I remember when I first got this game and played it, I loved the Biomutant bug theme of it. Definitely a theme that hasn't been overdone yet. I love the creepiness and the enemies and music. I still love it for the same reasons after playing it this month. I started the month playing on easy and allowed myself to continue in order to learn all the levels. After clearing it with continues, moved on to normal difficulty but didn't find too much difference. The enemies shoot a few more bullets here and there, and the larger enemies may take a few more hits, so it's not really a big jump in difficulty. The game has several gotcha moments where something comes out too fast and with hardly any time to react. So once you learn how to deal with them, the game's not too bad. I still got tagged here and there in stage 2, 3, and 4 during my runs, but it's fine since the game is generous with one-up via points or hidden spots. The other thing you'll learn about this game is some weapons are OP. The red homing laser and blue 8-way shot can carry you through a lot of the game on their own. There are times when switching to the yellow laser is helpful, like many of the end bosses. I was able to get a 1cc on normal with Polyzena, the bug with the red homing laser and the blue 8-way shot. I would say this is a good game for beginner or intermediate level players who are looking for a game they can 1cc without putting hundreds of hours into. One shortcoming of this game for me is the scoring games this vintage are not really known for having advanced scoring mechanics, so I get that. I guess you could sit there and milk some bosses if you really wanted to. My next goal would be to 1cc it with a ship that doesn't have the homing laser or the 8-way shot. That will make me approach the game differently. Overall, this is a fantastic game that I think get overshadowed by some other great Mega Drive shmups. I definitely will be playing this one more from time to time. Thank you. Spoiler alert here, I also was pleasantly surprised by this game. It's not some I've had it for a while. I played it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes there, but never really put some time into it. I don't want to say this too often because I could summon him, but you could call it maybe a hidden gem.
Right.
Yeah. No mention of Metal Jesus here. Don't say that word again.
Scoush jumped in and said, I'm playing the US version. It's a fun game so far, but I've not seen beyond stage 3. How many are there? Well, as we mentioned before, there are 8.
How many licks to get the center of crying? Man, I just dated myself bad with that one. Alright. Yes, the unpronounceable. Man of Yagagwa. Man, this game is a lot tougher than the first stage lets on. I'm awful at games with swinging options. It took me a month to get to the last stage of Rolling Gunner overpowered because I refused to play it twin stick. I just had my options swinging away, but it was so much fun. I'm going to have to take a look at the differences between the ships here, as they only seem to share certain weapons at different speed values. I'm thinking Polizina. It's got multiple weapons that home in. All my deaths so far have been from memorization, something flying out behind me, etc., etc., etc. Most of the time, if I'm trying to keep myself with fully powered red homing laser pointed either above or behind me to keep from getting death memorization. Electra is the only one to me personally that doesn't feel good to play. It's super old school Thunder Force type stuff. Before bullet hell, macro dodging was more of a thing. Look at the high speed option in Soldier Blade. To me, that's nigh unplayable. I could make it to stage 4 without any consistency. Later on, I could only make it to stage 4 with any consistency. Those gotcha moments hit hard if you aren't prepared for the right side weapon. If I had to do a quick review of this game, it would be this sentence. Biohazard Battle lives and breathes on its atmosphere and tension. There truly is nothing like it, and I can never figure out if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Well, regardless if it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm definitely happy that you had a chance to play through it with us for the month of September. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Delta Mudkip says, I'm playing the game on like its easiest difficulty. That's per my tradition. Furthest I've gotten the game over so far has been the second boss. And it's still pretty darn good. Keep on trying, and hopefully you enjoyed the game.
Yeah, for sure. Pony Trigon said, gonna be using Electra and Polizina a lot, I can tell. Mainly because of the speed and the homing weapons. This game screams what the Genesis is known for, in my opinion. Just really weird and off-the-wall stuff that normally wouldn't fly with Nintendo. I say this, and R-Type 3 and Super R-Type exist. Using a ship with the 8-way blue shot is also pretty helpful, especially for the sheer amount of popcorn enemies that pop up everywhere. Polizina has both a red homing and blue 8-way shots, thankfully. Electra has this, and Pony posted a gif of like a bubble blowing gun in the Discord as the blue shot. Still pretty useful, has some homing. Later on, and that is my first trial run finished with Polizina. Trial run meaning I used rewinds to correct dumb deaths, and I died a lot to stuff I didn't see. This game, for as challenging as it is, even more so when you use the zippy ships, is pretty generous with lives. There's even hidden 1-ups in every stage except for stage 1. Every 20,000 points you get a life, and around stage 3, it's extremely easy to milk bosses for lives because a nasty habit this game has is almost every boss having endless spawning mooks that distract your homing weapons and fire at you. I also find it odd that I keep calling this game weird, and yet this is tame compared to other Genesis shmups I've played, mainly compared to something like Gynog. Polizina is also my my ship of choice because it has 2 weapons that excel in maximum coverage, the red homing laser and the blue 8-way. And then I have to highlight this because this will explain our joke at the top of the show. But in the Discord, Pony posted this thing about the ships. And he said, glad these things have names, because if they didn't, I would have named them Gleep Glorp, Spronglow, Zonglis, and Dave. And that sort of became
Dave.
Yeah, that sort of became the running joke then for the rest of the month, where people were like, "Oh yeah, Dave," and so. But then at some point, he renamed Dave to Jeff. And so anyway, that's a thing. Later on, the red bounce is surprisingly very useful in caves. It excels in stage 4. Also, I really hope no one here has trypophobia, because stage 4 would be pretty uncomfortable. I might mess with the speedy ships actually. They're zippy, but not too zippy. If I recall correctly, Hecuba is the fastest of all the ships. Surprisingly, doing pretty good with the Hecuba, even if the only homing weapon it has is the blue splody bubbles. They got punch, but the fire rate is awful. However, they help a ton with the stage 4 boss who likes to armor up a lot. And then again later, Polyxena has the best loadout, since it is has the best of all 3 colored weapons, the red homing, the yellow laser, and the blue 8-way. Hecuba is the worst loadout wise, but it's still pretty good, since red bounce helps out a lot in tight areas, and hoo boy does this game love tight areas. I am so glad this is a shmup that doesn't have collision damage. Bond has a very slow fire rate, but insanely good area of effect, which helps a lot when dealing with the sheer amount of popcorn enemies the game throws at you. And again later, would it be fair for me to say this kind of counts as a horror shmup? Which is a very rare thing in this genre, surprisingly. It's weird, it's unsettling, and I love it. Also, the music really likes to creep into my head. And then for final thoughts, let me start off by saying, this feels like an Amiga game in a good way. It has the aesthetic of a weird, unheard of gem on the Commodore Amiga or something. Main thing that helps is this game came out in the era of, you better have the manual for this game or else you'll have no idea what you're doing. The plot, the ship names, the weapons, the levels, all of that is in the manual. Sadly, my physical copy doesn't have a manual, so I had to rely on a generously donated PDF from y'all. Helped a lot with picking a favorite. On to the positives. The game itself feels so different from most other shmups I've played. The aesthetic is weird, the music is weird, the option is weird, it's all weird. But it's my favorite kind of weird. Closest game I can think of that fits this level of weird is Paranoia or Psychosis on the TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine. The music has a nice variety to it, where some tracks are high energy, like the songs for the first 2 stages, reused for stages 6 and 8, and the other tracks are incredibly tense and unnerving, like you're really creeping through that infected territory. Almost all of the tracks are a variant of the stage 1 theme, and they all have that unsettling pa-pa-pa-pa, pa-pa-pa-pa, pa-pa-pa-pa that I constantly hear in the back of my mind. The music's weird, and it's very catchy. As for the graphics and the stages, the game has a pretty dark color palette, but it uses that palette really well. It's really easy to see the enemies, your ship, and bullets. All of the stages have a really nice variety to them, and my personal favorite is stage 7, where you're going through this heavily quarantined area. It's a sad depiction of what happened that led you to doing what you must, but it's really nice visual storytelling. The stages themselves have pretty nice cohesion to them, ranging from heading to an evacuated city or fighting through a cave, then taking to the skies to help fight a giant mutated battleship. It's all varied, it's all really cool, and a lot of the levels really stick out as their own thing. The ships. You have 4 of them. All of them are reliable. One ship might be your cup of tea compared to the other 3. Either way, they all have different loadouts, different speeds, different aesthetics, but they're all reliable bio workhorses that do their jobs, and do their jobs very well. The weapons. It takes a while to get used to the option, because it moves the opposite direction of your ship. This is only an issue when you use green or yellow, and nobody uses green. Yellow has its uses. Depending on your ship, red, yellow, and blue are all different weapons, and they all have some level of reliability to them. Red has either a bounce shot or a homing laser, blue homing splody bullets or an 8-way shot, and yellow has either a powerful rapid shot or a beam that only aims forward but deals a metric ton of damage. That's the boss killer weapon. My main choices for most of the runs was Polyxena, but I also used Hecuba and Orestes a lot. Both of them have pretty good loadouts, but Hecuba takes more skill. Or more skill to use because it has the worst, quote-unquote, worst loadout. Now for the neutral, the bosses. The bosses are really cool in design. A lot of really unusual designs, like a giant worm or some creature that slaps armor on itself, or a heavily mutated engine in a giant ship. My main issue with the bosses is they spawn a near endless amount of popcorn enemies to deal with while you're dealing with the boss, the original boss. It gets a little hard to focus on target priority when I'm getting shot at from the bottom and sometimes the top too. Worst example is Stage 5 with the fish boss. That boss alone was hard to dodge attacks, has hard to dodge attacks, but add in all the fish swimming through and firing at you, and the fight gets way worse. The only real negatives I have with this game is this game really loves speed sections, and also likes jump scaring you with enemies coming in from behind. The game very obviously takes a lot of cues from R-Type, but the jump scaring enemies is kinda a dead giveaway that devs really loved R-Type. I'm so glad that with the speed sections and tight corridors, which there's a lot of, this game does not have collision damage, so slamming into a wall isn't going to kill you unless you get stuck on a wall right when the screen border hits. As for the jump scare enemies, I went with the usual 1943 method of staying in the middle and keeping a sharp eye out. The black slug in Stage 3 tends to get me a lot, but the stay in the middle method helped me quite a bit when dealing with that thing. This game did not leave me crying. It left me wanting to play more, and I shall. Maybe I'll even get an actual clear. I give this game a Gleep Glorp, Spronglo, Zonglis, and Jeff out of 10.
Very nice. You know, when you said bio workhorse, all it made me wonder is you've got Vic Viper out there on a frozen planet trying to, and someone's saying, "Come on, turn over," trying to start the engine for the ship.
Right.
All right. Excellent. Let's move on to DL Ray. Biohazard. Sweet. I have a physical for this one somewhere. Maybe worth breaking out real hardware this month if I can put up with creaky Mega Drive pads. Oh, yes. Make sure to oil your Mega Drive pads, people. Can't for the life of me find my physical Mega Drive, so set up Biohazard Battle on my wife's Battlosera console instead. Found playing on pad too painful, so I switched to my 8-bit dough stick for a few runs. You know what's coming along. My early runs on Stage 2 look like this. Sweet! I'm in the groove. Gold Leader, they came from behind. Ah! Wasp! Trash worms? I don't remember there being trash worms. Why do I have no more lives left? Sounds like there's like a best of Shoot the Core cast clip collection there. Sounds like I'm going to have to reuse that. At the end of the year special. Trash worms? I don't remember there being more trash worms.
I think DL Wraith is our resident dramatist.
Keep them coming. But with little experimentation with the ships and the addition of 2 more lives, shh, I'm regularly getting to stage 5 into Goo Mega Maggot. Oh yes, the booger boss territory. So far my best is 68,320. Sorry, 68,320 I think. I may even 1cc this before month's end. Risk to store to continue for now, but as Arnie said, I'll be back. I'm sure you can do a better one than me. That BBW, Big Black Worm, whoa, I almost got in trouble on that one. Level 3, that jumps out of the broken bunker can go slither off. Come to think of it, level 2 trash worms kill me, level 3 wiggly corpse worm kills me, level 3 is BBW and its kids kills me. Am I just worm enemy number 1? What did I ever do? Oh wait, I remember. I made them stand on the hills and chuck grenades at each other back in my Amiga days. Fair enough, Kraken worms, I'll get you. Alright. Yeah. Team 17, go.
Yeah. The named boss said, played some. Game overed at stage 5 boss in latest run. I swear, some runs are just, there are just extends laying around. What makes those show up? Or are they always there? We'll probably play more later. It's interesting. And then, of course, later, stage 6 is awesome. I'm using the top right ship because why not? It looks like an Anomalocaris. Actually, the one I'm using has an orange laser, yellow bullet, and blue exploding. Kind of wish I had yellow laser. Oh well. And then again later, hey, 1cc. That final boss was terrifying. Honestly, the game is really, really good. Probably my favorite Mega Drive Hori. Not impossible, but pretty difficult while being forgiving and generous with 1-ups. I love how you can bump walls without consequences. Stage 6 is awesome, and Stage 7 is like, I went in blind to that stage, and it gave me such unusual vibes with the atmosphere and the music.
Iha says, I was shocked, I tell you, at how ruthless Stage 2 is, to be honest. I know others mentioned it, but you don't expect a speed stage that early. Yeah,
yes.
I guess it keeps keeps the tradition alive. By stage 2, stage 1 is where you learn everything, and stage 2 is where they say, more money, please.
Yes, well, you weren't expecting a stage 2, a speed stage already. Steel Empire called and said, hold my beer, because they do it in stage 2 as well.
Insert your, nobody expects a speed stage. It's in part 2. Monty Python joke there.
Yeah. Decilis said, I would also like to submit my paperwork for the Jeff Clear Club. Normal here. I ran it back on hard right after this and managed to get all the way back to the final stage. I think I'm good to leave it here, though. Don't feel like I need to pursue it further. I think I'm going to more or less echo the consensus, but the atmosphere for the game is definitely where it's at for me. The combination of weird set pieces and enemies in the stages, along with a unique musical presentation, made this really fun to work through. There were a few of those gotcha nonsense moments that made me grumble a little, but overall, they were minimal and easy to avoid after seeing them at least once. I spent most of my time flipping between the homing laser and the yellow frontal shot. The latter, in particular, was super useful once I realized it just destroys projectiles.
Orc Commander in a low, chill, cool moment here says, "Oh right, I also got a normal clear earlier in the month."
Yeah, just casually dropping that in the Discord. Well, quickly recapping the high scores, I ended up with the highest score for the month of 300,410 points using Gleep Glurp. Orc Commander was 279,710 points with Jeff. The name Boss had 273,890 points with Spronglow. Decilis had 271,310 with Jeff. Corkman was, excuse me, 269,980 points with Jeff. And Goji Guy with 79,750. And I suspect if Goji Guy had played a little bit more, he would have had a very quick clear as well. On to final thoughts.
Jack Handy, yes. All right, so, well, final thought. I really do like it. And I think, as Pony Trigon stated, this feels almost sort of like it started out life as a Amiga shooter because of the way, just how weird it is. But this type of thing hasn't really been overplayed, and I think it does a really good job of doing the graphics and the music combination to make you feel unease, right? You never know what's going to come next. And it does a good job with the enemies too, where the enemies really aren't repeated and you don't have bullets everywhere. The only small parts and problems were some of the speed trap stages where you had mine through, or some of the claustrophobic moments that could run into some problems, and there's some minor gripes with some of the bosses, but overall it's a surprisingly well done game. It's not quite up to Thunder Force level, but it's definitely a contender. Again, as I mentioned, there are a couple minor issues I have with the music, and maybe just a little bit with the gameplay, again with the speed trap stuff, but overall, again, real well done. And I don't think that Sega's, outside of their collection, has really ever pushed this game, nor have people really tried it, especially if it became 1,000 yen after a couple months. So again, I'll only say this once more because I really don't want to summon Metal Jesus, but I think this is one of the hidden gems, or a hidden shooting game gem on the Genesis or Mega Drive. The Genesis version is definitely the one that you want to recommend to people because it's auto-fire. That makes a huge improvement in the game. But either way, it's a pretty solid game to play, one that not a lot of people have.
Yeah. This is one of those games I've known about forever, and I bought a cartridge-only copy way back in the late 90s when I found it cheap somewhere, and I never really put much time into it. It was always one of those games that I could throw on for a few minutes, have a good time with it, and then just sort of move on. And, I never really played it seriously. And then I picked up a complete in-box copy at a store here, I want to say about, 5-6 years ago? And, of course, that's when we were, it was either right before or right after we started the podcast, and I was in full buy all the shmups mode, and but again, I didn't really dive into it at that point. So I knew this is a game that I enjoyed, but one that I wanted to get to and focus on at some point so that we could really dig into it. And I'm glad that we did. I would tend to agree. This might be one of those games that is a contender for like a top 5 or top 10 Genesis and Mega Drive cartridge shmup, and I'll qualify that just because I think the Sega CD and Mega CD games are a little bit more their own thing, but yeah, this is a very high quality game, and it's a shame that A, it didn't do well in Japan, and B, that the team who made this game didn't get another try or didn't get the opportunity to do more, because as good as this game is, for what seemed from what TZK said in the blog post, that this was sort of a little bit of a rookie team perhaps, they put together a fine game here. And so I would be interested to see what could have been had this game done well, and they got another crack at doing something either along the same lines, maybe a sequel, or just another game in this style that could have similar levels of atmosphere and interesting mechanics and things. I really enjoyed my time with it. September was such a busy month that I barely got to play. I think I only streamed this 4 or 5 times, but I ended up clearing it twice, and I even played on hard mode just to mess around with it toward the end of the month, and managed to make it all the way to the final stage. So I think a hard mode clear with at least one ship is very doable, and I would like to go back at some point and clear with the other 2 ships that I didn't use, because I think I could probably manage to pull that off as well. And so it'd be nice to sort of have the whole collection, if you will, of being able to clear the game with all 4 of the ships. The atmosphere, the design, the setting, even the story at some level, just because it's that sort of interesting science fiction kind of vibe, and then the music, and I don't know, it all really comes together for me. There are a few quibbles I have with the game, but they're pretty minor, and honestly, like I said, for what it sounds like it might have been an early effort for the team who was involved in the game, I think they have a real winner here, and it is a bit of a shame that the game is not more widely discussed or more well regarded, because I think it's a pretty good game.
Well said. All right, so let's move on to what's coming next. And we are recording this currently in November because things got backed up due to real life. So currently we are playing Blue Revolver, and this feels like finally getting some. I definitely like Hazelnut Hex, but Hazelnut Hex is like my Netflix and chill shmup. I can play it for 5 or 10 minutes and get some enjoyment out of it. This is Blue Revolver. Has some meat to it, right? It really makes you dig in. It's been a while since we had something where we could just dig in. Regardless if it's Danmaku or a dad shmup or whatever, I don't call it. This one definitely has some meat on the bone. So it's fun trying out the different ships, the different combinations, seeing what works and what doesn't work. I swear at one point the game was actually speeding things up, trying to push me along faster. This is stage 1 until I suffer death, so I wonder if that's part of the rank. But it's interesting trying out the various combinations and different bosses. That said, I agree with you entirely. Stage 3 boss can go. Yeah.
Stage 3 boss can get bent.
Yes. And in the December 2025, we are closing out with things trying to make things easier, which is a homebrew PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 clone that plays very similar to Defender. That is Santa Atlantean.
Yes.
And when we start the new year in 2026, everyone's going to play the Dononpachi Daifukusu, aka Dononpachi Resurrection.
Yeah, the Discord community spoke. We kind of put it out there with the previous episode about, well, should we keep doing the focus shot? And the overwhelming majority response was, yes, we like the focus shot. And also people were very kind and said, hey, don't worry if you can't always, talk at length about the focus shot game every month. And so they want to keep going with it. And since we had previously discussed doing Dononpachi Daifukatsu for next year, we'll just roll with it and, see what we can get done.
Yeah, DDP, DFK, or also DDP Resurrection has been numerous different places, right? Yeah, it's been on Steam, it's been on Switch, it's been on 360, and there's even a region-free version of it. So it's pretty widely available, and is something that I look forward to routing, and I'm certain Mark MSX could write a dissertation on.
Yeah. Yeah, the European 360 release from Rising Star Games is quote unquote region free in the sense that it'll play on both European 360s and North American 360s. And then of course the Switch version, has been available. It's been delisted, but if you bought the physical version, and the physical copies might still be available in Japan. And so those might be available, and it remains available on Steam. So there are definitely ways to get your hands on this game, and hopefully we can all have a good time with this one. I'm looking forward to messing around with Ketsupachi, which is one of the extra modes in the game, where it sort of takes the game of Dononpachi Daifukatsu and puts in Ketsui ships and adds a little bit of a Ketsui scoring component to that. So that should be interesting.
Once again, back to the cave.
Yes.
All right. At this point, we'd like to shout out for eTrem for the logo. Podcast shirts, as always, are on Redbubble, and also make good Christmas gifts, because who wouldn't want a Darius-themed shirt, or maybe even hat, for Christmas? Yes. Kogusu for the intro and outro music. I'd like to thank everybody who has participated and stuck with the Shoot the Core cast. Can't do it without participation, everybody else, so thank you again very much. Once again, I am offering please and thank yous.
Yes. And to paraphrase the Spatula City bit in UHF, nothing says I love you like a Shoot the Corecast shirt.
And also like to thank MetalFRO for streaming and keeping everything going. So thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to mention?
Don't forget to spend time with your friends and family and gather around the Tex-Mexium this month, right? It's the third Thursday. Am I right on that, or am I? It's late at night, so I'm losing.
Oh, I think it's the final Thursdays. It'll be the 27th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 27th. So on the 27th, please gather around, be thankful for your friends and family, for your health, and for everything else, and share the Tex-Mexium and share the wealth.
Yes, and drink your Ovaltine. Oh, wait, that's next month.
Andy will be happy. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll say thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Please understand, we hope you enjoy.
Gleep Glorp, Spronglo, Zonglis, and Jeff